this computer. And there you go. All right. So did you guys have a chance to watch the prior?
I
planning
watched
one?
about 10 minutes of it and then I could not watch the rest because I did not have time after that.
Understood. How'd you make it through?
Good. I liked how you oh, I'm sorry, you said Kyle.
I have not yet, Dan.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. I just want to know if I'm going to repeat myself. I don't want to bore you guys, but I'll kind of give you the rundown of kind of what we hit on that, and then we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into some other things.
Okay.
So, what I do. So you guys are both on a computer now. Are you on a computer, Kyle? Or are you on your phone?
I'm on my phone.
Okay. So I'm going to spotlight the other version of me, which you should just see a piece of paper on. Spotlight. Okay. Is that white piece of paper the only thing you're seeing, Kyle?
Yep.
Okay. It just makes it a little bit easier to show that. All right. Can you see that? All right.
Yes.
All right. So this is what we started with the last time, basically, was how I start my planning is I've done a bunch of different things. I was winging it for a while, found that wasn't all that conducive to tracking, that I was doing things very differently every single time, and it just got a little chaotic. So I researched a bunch of different things. I found one that had a decent format to it. So I kind of adopted that, and I'm molding off of that. So this is definitely not the final version. Like by the end of the year, I'm sure it'll be tweaked even more, just as I pick up things, or if I have to add more things to the meeting, to my planning, to help keep myself on track. But I usually start with these 5 bullet items. I always start by listing out the wins from the prior week. I just think it's good to start on a high note, kind of reflect back on the good stuff. That obviously gives you kind of energy to keep going on it. And actually, I just finished the book, The Gap and the Gain, and kind of a lot of the message behind that, if you guys haven't read it, is focusing on the wins, and focusing on the gains that you've made and not the gaps of how much further you have to go in front of you. And it kind of just keeps you moving, keeps you motivated to keep chipping away at it. So after I list the wins from my prior week, then I go into a brain dump where I literally, any things in my mind that I've been hanging on to, like, oh, I got to remember to plan my haircut. I got a couple real estate meetups this week and stuff like that. I just get it all on paper. So I have it all kind of in front of me. And then once it's all out there, I flip back to the prior week or prior weeks, and look at any items that I did the prior week and before that I may not have scheduled for the prior week. So maybe it didn't hit a priority, or it was and something happened and I didn't get to it. So I reflect back to just see if I have to pull anything forward into my planning. And then once everything's on that sheet, then I prioritize. I only prioritize the top like 3 to 5 things. And one of the questions that came up when I mentioned this before last week was, if I'm only doing this on the business side. And no, not necessarily. Every time I sit down with the planning, to do my planning, something is on my mind, whether it's, I feel a little disconnected from the family the past week or two. So my priority this week is going to be on the family. So my 3 to 5 items might be more geared towards time with the family. Or if, it's like, hey, I really have been lacking on my marketing, then maybe my priority that week, it's almost like you pick a theme or like a focus for the week. And then I start prioritizing around that. So for instance, for this coming week, because I only was able to do half my planning this morning. I'm going to do the other half later on after this call. But my focus for next week is very much on the 6 family that I have under agreement. So a lot of what I'm doing next week is focused on getting the LLC set up, getting accounts set up, doing all the stuff I need to make sure the lender has information that they need, and just keeping that ball moving forward. So that's kind of the focus for next week. So I'll prioritize the top 3 to 5 things maybe around that topic. And then once I have all that prioritized and listed out, then I kind of think back as to, just general journaling kind of reflecting on the prior week. Like, how did last week go? This will be different for everyone. Everyone will think differently on what they want to do, but I just look at like, how do I feel? Like overall, do I feel like last week was super productive? Do I feel that last week was, I probably cheated a little bit too much on the calories and I may not have watched what I should have been watching, and I'm going to pay for it on Monday when I jump on the scale. So I kind of look back as to, yeah, what I do good, what I not do good. Do I feel like I'm moving in the right direction? And then that kind of leads me right into the last item, which is my tracking towards my annual goal. Now, this is an area that I am going to be expanding on, as the year progresses, partly because at the beginning of the year, I had set a couple priorities for the year, a couple goals for the year, but I didn't dissect it as much as I should have. I focused more on the business, the real estate. Like, what do I want to get done in the real estate world? Now, I have a bunch of other stuff that I wanted to do. Have more date nights with my wife, have more one-on-one time with my kids, get myself back into better shape, meditate more, do all these things. And, I kind of took a lot of it for granted. So I've been tracking some of that stuff, but they haven't been like reflected on in line 5 at the end of my weekly planning. I'm not going back and looking at the beginning of the year metrics that I set. And the reason I definitely think I have to dive more into this is partly because actually, I mean, you guys are both Ignition members. And if you were on the last call or heard most of the last call, Jason dove into a lot of his like Monday, right? He uses monday.com, and it is very detailed on how it breaks down. And I was like, you know what? I did that to a certain degree with only a couple categories at the beginning of the year. And I haven't done a great job at pulling those items forward into my Sunday planning sessions. So while I am moving the ball forward on one big goal, like the real estate business side, the other things may not have had the attention that it needs. So I will be readdressing that and maybe morphing this up a little bit more. I also just recently, probably in the last 3 weeks or so, right underneath line item 1, you see metrics and mileage. So I started to go back and realize that I wasn't tracking those in my weekly meetings. I'd have them in my phone and I wouldn't actually go back and see how I'm doing compared to those. So I actually put those in there, and it helps me stay on top of my mileage tracking for tax time, because sometimes a week, 2 weeks would go by and then I'm trying to remember, wait, I'm looking at my Mile IQ app and trying to figure out, was that real estate related? Was that related to my job, my W-2? Was that personal time? Was I in my vehicle? Was I in my wife's vehicle? Or sometimes it would pop up that, how the hell did I end up in Maryland? Like, my car wasn't in Maryland, but then I remember, oh yeah, like 2 weeks ago, I actually flew down there and I was in a rental. So can't count those for mileage. So I kind of shift all that stuff around to get back where I need to be.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
What would be an example of a metric that you are keeping track of?
Let me show you. So what I started to do was I track, I'm sure you've heard of things like atomic habits, habit tracking, habit stacking, all that stuff. So I was kind of exposed to that. I don't remember exactly what it was that exposed me to it, but with my meditation, I found that I was more consistent and effective when I stacked it into my morning. Because I'm a creature of habit. I mean, some people are spontaneous and all that stuff. I'm very much a creature of habit. I love to go to Dunkin's in the morning, in case you didn't know. And so it's very easy for me to stack in 10 minutes into my morning routine. I go to Dunkin's, I grab my coffee, I have my wrap or whatever, and I get ready for the day. But what's an extra 10 minutes right there to get a meditation done? And I'm not great at it. Sometimes I'm all over the place, especially if there's, a pressing matter like, you know, if I'm nervous about one of the deals, like, I mean, most recently in the past couple weeks, trying to focus on meditation and realizing that, you know, oh, did I get the lender that document for the 4 family? And, you know, did I answer the question for my partner on that 6 family? And so there's like questions that just kind of creep in and everything like that. But I mean, we're human, so it's going to happen. But realizing I could do that with the meditation, I started trying to do that with other things. And so in order to track my progress towards them, I put them in an app. I use the Loop Habit Tracker. I did show this the last time. I'll try to pull up a screenshot of it. So if you guys have heard of the Seinfeld method.
Good.
There we go. All right. Where'd my Zoom go? There it is. All right, I'm gonna share that screen so you guys can see it. Yes. All right, can you guys see that screen share?
Mhm.
All right. So this is just online. I just pulled it up, but it's from the Google store, Loop Habit Tracker, and it's kind of based on the Seinfeld method. I mean, because I know that back in the day there was a Seinfeld episode where somebody was like, "You don't want to break the streak," and so I put all my metrics in there. So I put my exercise, my meditation. If I'm in bed by like 12 o'clock, did I track my calories for that day? And at the end of the week, you know, did I hit the goal of calories? Did I check the leads that came in? How many leads came in, and all that stuff? So I track a bunch of those things.
That's a good idea.
And the good thing about this app is you can track it by yes, no, like that's the check mark, like, yep, I did it. Or you could track it by read the book. I read 50 pages. You could set the goal. If I want to read at least, I'm assuming that this person probably set the goal as read at least 50 pages a day or something like that. So you can see how they, when it's colored the right way, it means that they hit their goal, right? So these lighter days, oh, I didn't quite get it. But it's easy because this app, I like it because the app can send you calendar reminders. It can send you notifications, timing, all that stuff. So at like 10:05 every night, my phone dings and says, "Did you finish entering your calories for the day?" And by 10 o'clock at night, I really should have, because another one of my goals is to not snack after 10 o'clock at night. And then I just enter it. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. And sometimes it'll pop up and say, "Did you check your real estate leads today?" And I'm like, "Oh crap, I didn't do that." So I'll pull open my phone, I'll start going through my emails and see, did any good leads come through? And maybe I'll shortlist those ones and I'll put them on the list for next week to follow up on. So I like this app. It gives you all sorts of different graphs and whatever. Some people are motivated by the illustrations. You know, I like to see uphill climbs, see, you know, check boxes, see a nice full calendar. It's that little, you know, thing in your brain that's like, oh, I want it to be full. I want it to be a streak all the way across, kind of thing. So I enjoy this app. It gives you your metrics, your streaks, how far you've gone, all that stuff. So that's what I
Awesome.
use for that.
Thank you.
And what I do for my planning, spotlight this again so you can see it. Okay. So what I do for my planning is I will, I'll start to hit, you know, I'll set goals, right, weekly. Like, I want to make sure I exercise at least 3 times a week, or I want to meditate 5 times this week. So I'll put that there, and then I'll go back into my habit tracking app and I'll fill in the details. Like, how many did I get done? Well, I only got 4 days of meditation out of the 5 that I wanted. Okay, then I set my goal for the next week. And then at the very bottom, yep, I tracked my mileage. I went through there and sorted everything out. So that's kind of what I do for that.
So are you using like that little notebook also in addition to your planner?
Yes. Yeah. So this is like my journaling, right? So there's, you know, item 1 is I'll start with my last week wins. Item 2, I'll hit the metrics. And I always add my start and my finish. just because I want to track, how long is this taking me? You know what I mean? Is this planning taking me too long? Because if it's taking too long, it becomes a job. And if it becomes a job, then I'm not getting the benefit of it. It then becomes a form of escape. And if it's a form of escape for mindset reasons, people that are really in tune to mindset, you start to realize that you're avoiding something. Like, what are you trying to avoid by now taking 6 hours to plan your week out? Something you don't want to face. So that's kind of where I'm at. I try to track it to make sure I stay within an hour to 2 hours. It only took me 2 hours. It will take me 2 hours anytime I change anything. So when I started adding in the metrics, that session took me about 2 hours. Actually, I think it was that session. Yeah, that's the one. So on 7/10 was the one that I started putting my metrics in, and it took me 2 hours to do that planning. On a normal week, it takes me hour and a half. So I mean, I think even if you go back, like hour and a half is kind of the typical hour and a half. Yeah. So I invest about an hour and a half into doing this every week. And then obviously I do my brain dump. This is like, I just jot everything down. Whatever I need to get tackled for that week, I just list it all out. And then same page, I prioritize the top 3 or 5. So I'll put 3 or 5 stars on there. Pretty much because I focus on 3 to 5, because you can't have a million priorities. Then that doesn't make them a priority. But most of my time for growing my business or anything like that, I think outside of my W-2, outside of my job. So I'm looking at, let's say I have 5 nights a week that I can try to grow this side hustle or whatever it is. So I really, most of those priorities are things I tend to tackle during that after work hours. There are some times when I can squeeze in a quick thing in the middle of the day because I know my day is going to run longer for work, or I'm okay with making the trade-off. Like, hey, I'm going to take an hour out of the middle of my day because this is important. I have to do this during business hours. And it just means I have to put an hour on the back end of my work schedule. Or, you know, especially if I'm trying to make up for my full-time job, I sometimes get emergency calls. Those will come at 2 o'clock in the morning, midnight. I mean, it just doesn't matter. So if I put extra hours into something like that, I don't feel guilty if I have to take 2 or 3 hours out of a day because, well, yeah, I showed up at the job at midnight and I've been here and it's 8 o'clock in the morning now. And technically I put in 8 hours, but I tend to still work my full day for the most part. So it can catch up with you. You know, you put in those extra hours, especially like in a salaried position. Sometimes you're not tracking it. And next thing you know, 40 hours turns into 50 hours, turns into 60 hours. So, and that kind of, I reflect back on that too. Like at the end of the week, it's like, do I feel like I gave everything the time that it needed? If not, I try to adjust for the next week. So yeah,
Question for you on the brain dump.
Yes.
Are you only writing down things that could potentially get done that week? Or if you have like a goal that you're like, oh, that's probably a 4-month goal, are you putting that in there too?
So I typically try to just whatever's in my head. So a lot of the stuff that I end up putting out here is stuff that, yeah, I could probably get it done next week. But there's no way I get all these things done in a week. So some of these things carry week after week after week. And other things, this is where personally, I have a little bit of a disconnect between my weekly planning and my quarterly annual goals and things like that. So for the way I'm going to modify my own process going forward is my brain dump. I'm going to look at the rest of the year, right? I'm going to go back to the goal sheets that I set at the beginning of the year with all of the metrics. Like I wanted a certain number of date nights with my wife. I wanted to learn about a couple different religions because I wanted, not that I plan on becoming super religious or anything like that, but I wanted to just explore a couple other things because it's out there, right? And I'm trying to be open-minded about that. So I just want to expose myself to things like that and see what other religions and spiritual things are out there to see if maybe I'm not connected in the way that I really feel like I want to be, because I just don't know that there's a path for me. And that type of journey is how I end up doing meditation. I mean, again, rewind the clock. Anybody that knows me, anybody that watches this is going to be like, oh my God, Dan does meditation. Yeah, Dan does meditation. Believe it or not, I never would have said that I'd be doing that a year ago. It's just so, there was some stigma around it. I'm like, no, I'm not, I don't meditate. What are you talking about? I'm a dude, man. I don't do it. Drink beer and off-road. You know what I mean? That's not me. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things, trying to break those stereotypes and being open-minded. And I think being part of all these groups is starting to make that very obvious that successful people pay that attention to living by design and doing things for themselves. So I have to go back, look at those metrics I set and start pulling those into my brain dump, right? And say, hey, I've been a little off track here. And I typically do that right now almost on a quarterly basis because of a group that I'm in with. I'm involved in the GoBundance brand. So I'm not in GoBundance, the big brand GoBundance, but I'm in like the step before that, trying to just surround myself with the right people. And part of that tribe is a quarterly review on where you are and everything like that in all of the what they call the gardens of life. So I do all that. I track, like, I set goals for family, for relationships, for financial, for business, for self, all that stuff. So I will be pulling that in here so that my brain dump will now be much bigger. So there's going to be things that stay on this brain dump for months. But if nothing else, I'm not going to accomplish it. It might not be a checkbox, like I can get this done in one afternoon. But it might be a reminder that, hey, I really should, read or reread a certain book in the next 2-3 weeks. So it'll just be a reminder to keep thinking of those things, because otherwise this brain dump is what I look at. This is what I think of. And then when I reflect back the next week, this is what I'm looking at. So if I don't have that document in front of me, which we call the one sheet, then I sometimes let those things slip. So for the brain dump, I will see if I can share this now. If you guys have, all right, just want to make sure it loads before I try to share it. All right. So you guys may have seen this. If you've seen me on Instagram or anything like that, I posted this on Instagram before. This was, I'm pretty sure it was from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. So this is some of the stuff that I am thinking of when I'm trying to prioritize things. You know what I mean? Focusing on the important and urgent things, or another version of this is if you're familiar with the one thing. You know, I try to look at what is the one thing I need to focus on to blah, 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 whether it's take my business further, strengthen my family, get myself back into better shape, whatever it is. So you kind of look at all those things and you go down the list. So I do use this. I reflect back on this to try to keep myself thinking of it, because I do tend to find myself dealing with urgent, not important things. I get stuck in that thing where something pops up and it's like, oh my God, I got to tackle it. But it's like, it's really not that important for this to happen right now. Like, yeah, I understand it needs to happen, but I don't have to be the one that does it. So I have to work better on that. And that's, well, I mean, here's a prime example of that, the delegate to someone else. Urgent. I get a seller call coming in from my direct mail marketing. That's an urgent thing. They call, it happens. Phone's ringing, that's urgent, right? That is the definition of urgent. It pops like that, it's an issue. But it's not important for me to take every call, because half of those calls are going to be junk anyway, right? So that's why, hey, in the Ignition group, I finally wrapped my head around, I need to start delegating more. So now I have an answering service. When somebody calls back on my marketing, they go through the filter of my answering service. Now, answering service is nowhere near as good as I think I am on the phone, but they'll still weed out people and save you some time. But now my problem is I need to keep pumping them full of leads. So now we're back into, well, that's important. And it's urgent. So I have to start sending them more leads to make that more effective. So once I do the brain dump and I hit the priorities, like I said, then I go through and I do my reflection on last week, and then I jump into how am I doing towards my goal. Once all that is done, that's when I now take out my planner, right? So now I have my planner in front of me and I start to fill in all the non-negotiables and things that have to happen, things that are repetitive every week, whatever it is. And I color code it because none of us do one thing all day long, right? I mean, Kyle, you're in like 17,000 businesses, right? So you know the struggle. And Janine, you got like 10 different things happening at any given moment. So we all have all these different plates spinning. So when I look at my calendar, I can get a feeling right away like, oh, yeah, there's not enough family time, or I'm spending too much time on the real estate this week. I need to focus more on myself or something like that. So I'll show, well, before I do that, I will share this. I don't know how this is going to look in the playback, so we'll see how that all comes together. Am I sharing? What is it sharing?
It's not sharing.
All right, share. There we go. All right, can you see that? This is the problem. I got 4 different monitors going on, man. All right, so
You must be organized.
yeah, I want to say this was. I want to say this was back in September. It was right there. I dated it 9/22/21. So this was actually a challenge from Gordon. So Gordon challenged me to time block, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you block yourself out or whatever it was." And I forget exactly what the prompt was, but he's like, "Prove it. Send it to me, and I want to see what it looks like." So I did. I blocked out my day, and this is just straight up blocks. There is no tasks oriented with this. So if somebody is just getting started in the planning world, start here if you can. You know what I mean? Like, give yourself the designated time. Kyle, I know I've talked to you about doing things like this where it's like, you don't have to be nitty gritty. In fact, unless you're really, really good at it, I recommend you don't book yourself every like 15-minute, half-hour increments, because something's gonna slip, something's gonna happen, and it's gonna catch you up. And that's what was happening to me. But as long as I'm working kind of within the block framework, yeah, tasks will slip and they'll do all that stuff, because we all know how difficult it is shifting from, well, I mean, Kyle, I'll use you as an example. You're doing HVAC all day long, working on controls and dealing with all this technical wiring and all that stuff. And then you're like, hey, for my lunch, I'm gonna do seller calls or something like that, or anything like that. Like, shifting out of the technical HVAC, like very hands-on mindset, into now building rapport and doing all that, it's a hard shift. And there's always residual crap that stays in your head from what you were just working on, and it makes it so you're not fully present there. So by being able to block these things out and setting calendar reminders or alerts like 10 minutes, 15 minutes in advance, all right, I got 15 minutes to kind of wrap myself up here, get to a good point where I can unplug from this and then focus on this other thing, and make sure you give yourself enough time to do whatever task it is you're trying to do. Because shifting like rapid fire, you never get the momentum that you want to get. And I know, Kyle, I'm going to use you as an example again, because we've recently talked about it, was when you have a lot of different things happening, you don't have to do everything in one day, right? I mean, break it down into a week if you want to, or if a month, if you feel that that's more productive to you. But if you have 5 days in a week and you have 5 big things that you're working on, it doesn't mean you have to fit all 5 things into one day. You can do, Mondays can be a focus on your podcast. Tuesdays can be a focus on your real estate. Wednesdays can be a focus on your investment. And then, Thursdays you're doing lending, and then boom. Like, I mean, you break it out, you chunk it out the way it makes sense for you, so that you give yourself big enough blocks of time to get into the flow that you need to get into. Because if you only give yourself a half hour, an hour to do something, I know for me, it takes a little bit to get ramped up and kind of get into that mindset and get things moving. I kind of relate it back to when I was in school for architecture. We'd have these things called charrettes. Like, I mean, my crit, where they do a critique of your design or whatever, would be the next morning or whatever. And it'd be like, I need to focus on this. And then literally when you dive into it, like you just lose track of time. I'd forget to eat. I'd forget to drink I'd drink coffee. I'd be like just cranking all night long. And then next thing you know, it's 7 in the morning and I'm still sitting in my studio at school. And I'm like, oh, I have a crit in 2 hours. I need to run home, get cleaned up, come back here, get this thing all printed out and ready to go. Because once you get into it, then you actually start to make the progress. So if you don't give yourself enough time, and enough is relative, everyone's going to have a different definition of what enough time is, then you can be productive. So don't try to squeeze it all into one day. Spread it out over a week if you feel like you're too chaotic. You know what I mean? And then you'll actually start to chip away and then reflect on it at the end of the week. Was this planning of focusing on one task, one field, one business a day effective? Or do I feel like I didn't touch that business enough, or there was too much time in between? Then you can tweak it to whatever works for you. But time blocking worked to get my head right. And you can kind of see all the different colors. So you have, you know, time for myself, time for my W-2, my job, my salaried job, time for my real estate business, time for my family. And that kind of all works out from there. And I mean, again, this was September. And then now, I mean, now you can kind of see I do the same thing. I mean, it's carried through here. So like I got time for myself in the morning. This is when I weigh in. Monday mornings, I weigh in. Like, how good was I on tracking my calories and dropping the weight I needed to, exercising all week? And then boom, I'm straight into my W-2. And like midday, I have a meeting with my GoBundance pod. We have an accountability pod. We meet every week to hold each other accountable. So I try to book time for that. And then right back into W-2 for the end of the day. And then typically before I shift into real estate business, my side hustle or whatnot, it's family time. Like I get home, I unplug from work, spend time with the family, eat, check in on them, see how their day was, put them, we have 2 girls. So one of us will put like one to bed, the other will put the other, and then we swap and, you know, make sure we spend time with each one of them. And then I dive right into my business at the end of the night. Sometimes I put reminders in here of, I want to make sure I post something on social. I want to make sure I contribute something. And then I just kind of go for the rest of the week that way. You know what I mean? And again, using the color coding, I can look at it and you can see it's light on the orange, right? Orange is my family. And I color coded up here. Pink, W-2. Orange, family time. Green is my real estate investment business. And then blue is myself. So blue and orange are a little light on those calendars. I mean, the good thing is I make up for a good amount of that on weekends. Weekends, I do a lot of more focus on the family. We try to do things. My wife is great at adventures, likes to take the kids on adventure. They're always active. So we typically try to do something there. And then, like, I mean, this would have been a date night, but unfortunately that didn't actually happen. So that's how I kind of plan everything out to that extent. So that's kind of what I do for the most part. And like I said, I do plan on changing things around a little bit, partly because of conversations in the Ignition group, conversations with my pod mates, conversations with other GoBundance guys that are very successful in all of their different endeavors, is you start to see the common thread through everything. And I mean, one of the most common threads that you can see is goal setting and habit tracking. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, I mean, so if I stick to this, then I'm going to start to learn what works best for me and see the business progress. But it's very important to be able to track it. And then not necessarily, again, this comes back to the book, The Gap and the Gain, is not necessarily reflect back on, oh, I didn't hit that, or that ideal that's out there in the future. I'm not a millionaire today. You know what I mean? And who cares? Like, don't worry about what's out there. Look back. You know what I mean? And thankfully, in all of these groups that I'm a part of, especially Ignition and the GoBundance groups, there's a lot of recordings. There's a lot of data that you put out there, and you can go backwards. You know what I mean? I can go back into the Ignition group and watch early recordings of those coaching calls and see how, like, I mean, Jack, I mean, I can see like very, very early versions of Jack on those calls to versions that we get today. And I can see the gain that he's made. And it's easy for you to see it in other people because you kind of beat yourself up. It's kind of the nature of humanity, I guess, is we never feel like we're hitting the ideal, and that it sets us up for failure. So being able to look back and do it for yourself, that's why I start my planning with a win. Start with a win, get on a high note, go from there, and ride that wave until the end of your planning session.
Like that.
So
I love that, Dan. Question for you: when it comes to like the actual metrics and like tracking the numbers, like did I hit X out of X for this week? Do you try and keep the metrics kind of like on the low side, like in terms of quantity? So like you're not like tracking like too many things and like getting overwhelmed, and like do you just try and keep them like, yeah, I guess like a smaller amount of like really meaningful metrics rather than kind of like way too many, like what I mean?
it's what's important to you. You know what I mean? So if there's a lot of things that are important to you, then you better be really good at planning, because you're not going to have time to fit all those things in. But it is one of those things where all of these things that I track are important to me. Now, granted, I've knocked some things out of my list, and I've changed some things. So, I mean, one example of that is I used to track what time I went to bed. That's fine, but I was tracking what time it was. But really, ultimately, it's one iteration of what the ultimate goal that I'm trying to track is did I get to bed by midnight? Who cares if I went to bed at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning? I didn't get to bed by midnight. So instead of like trying to do the math and figure all that crap out, it's like, yes or no. Did I get to bed before midnight? So I knocked out that. Who cares what time I went to bed? Did I actually get to bed when I was supposed to? Yes or no? Same thing with like exercise. I was tracking the amount of time I was putting in and all that stuff. And again, it was like, am I doing what I set out to do? Once I get good at that, then I can start setting different metrics of, am I putting in the half hour, the hour a day, whatever I want to track. So start small with the stuff that are the most important, the rocks, you know what I mean? The things that are non-negotiable. Get good at the habit of tracking those. And then sprinkle in another thing, sprinkle in another thing. Because if you start your tracking with 15 things, it becomes a job. It is now stressful to you. You don't want to do the time and the effort to go in, and then you give up on it. We don't like difficult things. We just don't. I mean, we always default back to what's easy. It is a hell of a lot easy for me to kick my feet up and watch a show at night. It's more beneficial if I jump on the elliptical and watch that show, or jump on the elliptical and do a webinar or something like that. So now I'm killing two birds with one stone. Like, I mean, every Tuesday night I'm on a call with the GoBundance team. And it's very easy for me to, instead of sitting here in front of a computer, like I'm not doing very much activity right now. I'm not on a treadmill under my desk, trying to get my exercise in. So when I'm on those calls and it's not like a one-on-one type of thing or a small group setting where there's a lot of one-on-one interaction, I can jump on the elliptical or a stationary bike or something like that. And I can do some of that while I'm listening in on something, or listening in on an audiobook or something like that. Stacking those habits together makes it so much easier. Like hands down makes it easier. So you identify your rocks. What are your non-negotiables? What are the biggest things that are going to propel you forward, or the things that you need accountability and tracking towards? And then what are the things you can stack together to make it that it doesn't even matter, right? So like somebody that never meditates, doesn't have any type of structure at all, if you tell them, hey, you should try meditating, their first answer will be like, when do I have time? When do I have time to meditate? You know how many times I said that? And then I realized, like, my wife has Peloton, the Peloton app, right? And there's a whole section in there of just meditations. 5, 10, 15, 20-minute meditations. You can sort it out by gratitude, by energy, by fitness, like whatever your inspiration is, whatever your theme is for your meditation, you can kind of sort that out and pick one. And then I literally stick to the same one for a week, because I found myself spending too much time searching on YouTube for the right guided meditation. and something about it didn't work out great, or I was like, oh, it's going to suck all the data out of my cell phone plan. I don't want to do that. So the Peloton app has them all built in there. You can change it up and all that stuff. Or you find a YouTube channel that you really like and just favorite those, or build your own playlist. Put the time and effort into it up front, and then you just go into your YouTube account and you just select the one that you want to watch. But put the work up front, and that way you can kind of make it easier on yourself, because the harder it is to get to where you want to get to, the easier you're going to find an excuse not to do it, you know? And
Yeah.
then once you start to see the momentum, you're tracking and you're feeling good about it, it's going to springboard you, right? You start to ride that wave of success that, hey, I can do this. I can track habits. I can hold myself accountable. And if you're having a hard time holding yourself accountable, that's why you surround yourself with the group of people that you surround yourself with, right? We are all in the same group. That group will hold you accountable. You want us to, we will. You know what I mean? Like, if I need you guys' help to make sure I'm doing my planning, I'm going to put it out there. You know what I mean? And I strongly suggest you guys do the same thing. If there's something that you're really struggling with, put it out there, bring it to the coaching calls on Wednesday, and there will be support to help you get to that goal. And people, reaching out and everything like that. And, in other circles, there are other things that are out there. Like, again, the GoBundance brand, I keep mentioning that because I'm part of that. It's a lot of the same type of thing, where there's a big group of people and they support you. You know what I mean? You throw it out there. We're all on the same journey. We all just want to do better, be better. And there are people there that will, reach their hand out and help you get there and hold you accountable. And once it's not necessarily that they're going to call you and beat you over the head and say, you're not working out. Why are you not working out? They're going to help you hold yourself accountable, right? Give you some tools, maybe like I'm giving you here, the habit tracking app, all sorts of alarms. And one thing I didn't say was, after I do all that physical handwriting on my planner, I take all that and I put it into my Google Calendar. And my Google Calendar is color coded. Same exact way. Like, I have a shared email account with my wife. So in my calendar, if it pops up orange, it's a good chance that it's because my wife put something in the calendar. I think I can pull up.
A good idea.
Yeah, pull that. But yeah, so I track all that stuff. There's definitely stuff on there that I can't put into my daily schedule. Yeah, so this is the week. Where did my Zoom go? Every time I click something, like 10 windows pop up. All right, I'll share this real quick here, because I don't know if there's anything on there that I shouldn't share, but I don't really care. So, all right, so you can kind of see all the colors here. You know what I mean? We got color coded for family time. This is actually my kids. My kids go to camp, so I have their camps in there. For some reason, when they fade out the colors, because the week is in the past, it changes things. But enter my calories, load the LLC list, family time, elliptical time, all that stuff. So on my phone, it all shows up the same. Like, I have all these colors on my phone so I can see it. I set the reminders on the phone. I use technology to remind me. I use my phone, my technology, to hold me accountable, right? And then really it comes down to, is the phone gonna like pull out a hammer and smack me on the head if I don't jump on the elliptical? No, it's not that kind of accountability partner. But getting that alert, that reminder, and especially if you're staying on your routine, your habit, your Sunday planning, you're gonna realize, you know what, I don't really want to work out tonight. But if I remember, when I reflected on last week, on my notes, I realized that I didn't feel great because I didn't maybe track my calories close enough, or I didn't get the exercise in. I only exercised one time that week and I set a goal of 3. Hopefully that's enough inspiration to be like, you know what, I can do this. I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to just get it done. And once you plow through some of the difficult things that you don't really want to do enough times, it becomes easier. You know what I mean? And that's really what it comes down to, is if we keep doing what's easy, we'll be where we are right this second. You know what I mean? case in point. I mean, rewind the clock a year ago, I never would have thought I'd be, staring down the barrel of potentially 10 units, which is what I set my goal as at the beginning of the year, 10 units by the end of the year. But Gordon, if you're watching this, 40, I said 40 units, not 10 units. But it's one of those things where you don't really think that you're going to get there, but we all set these big goals at the beginning of the year, right? People set their resolutions and things like that. And how many people actually at the end of the year can say they got their resolutions done? Because all you do is at the beginning of the year, my New Year's resolution, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. Great. In a week from now, it's like, great. How are you going to get there? Like, oh, I don't know, maybe go to the gym every week or something like that, or every day. Great. All right. So fast forward a month. So did you go to the gym for the past 30 days or whatever it was? Like, no. But I got 9 months left, or 10 months, 12 months left of the year. I can get it done. Okay, cool. 6 months down the road. So have you gone to the gym for the past 6 months? No. But I got 6 months left of the year. It's fine. If you don't set little milestones along the way, good luck. You're not going to get there. I mean, there are some, you have to be really devout to just think it into existence without putting in some work. You know what I mean? Like, if it's at the top of the mountain and you don't see how to climb it, then it's just going to be out there. It's going to be that ideal that you never quite reach. And that's that whole gap in the gain mentality. It's, you put this image, this thing out in the future that it's like, someday I'll get there. And if you don't actually know the path, you don't have the GPS plugged in, and you don't know where to go, you may not get there. You will not get there. You need to make sure that you have some stops along the way, some landings on some staircases that tell you, yep, all right, I've already climbed 3 flights. I got 6 more to go. Let's do this. You know what I mean? So set realistic goals, and then, breaking them down. That's where I have to get more detailed on my own stuff, is the other avenues. So what else? What other questions you guys got?
I don't think I have any yet.
Okay. Well, what are you tracking right now? How are you holding yourself accountable, and what are you tracking towards?
Well, my
Well, how's
problem
that
is
resolution working out then?
I know. So my problem is I've always worked a full-time job. So this is my first time that I don't work a full-time job. I work 2 days a week at Carriage Town. I'm working on my own design business. I'm a consultant at Seacoast Vacation Rentals, and then I'm also trying to do real estate. So, and that kind of all just started in the past 2 months. So that's where I started going, I am way too disorganized for any of this to be successful. So this is my first day of planning. I have been
Gotta
really
start
good about
somewhere. I mean,
focusing on like to-do lists and like just this week's tasks. But anything like big picture, like I haven't set those milestones and those stepping stones and started chipping away at that stuff.
Gotcha. So the cautionary tale on the to-do list for myself, at least, is I had always been a to-do list guy, right? Especially towards the end of the year with my full-time job, I start cranking out, what do I need to get done before the end of the year, for work or all these other things. When you actually start putting all that stuff on paper, it becomes daunting. And when you see the mountain of stuff that you have to get done, it's like, yeah, that looks a bit too much for me right now. And then you kind of just pull yourself back in, and you're like, yeah, I'll chip away at some of it or whatever. So it's dangerous to just rely on the to-do list without putting them on a calendar, putting them out, putting a date on them or something like that, and stop looking at 100 items in front of you. Look at the 10 items you have to get done this week. You know what I mean? And if that 10 items, one of them is part 1 to a 5-part thing, then great. You're 20% of the way there. You know what I mean? And now you just keep chipping away at it. So don't just to-do list and let that scare you away. You know what I mean? If that's a big list, then break it down and chunk it up and just focus on a couple things that you can control in the week, especially if you're doing as many things and Kyle's doing a million things, I'm doing a million things. Everybody has so much going on that's where we're all in that position where, if we were just doing a full-time job coming home, then we're not going to be worried about planning and growing and expanding our lives and everything like that. But we're all trying to get more. So we're trying to squeeze more into the 24 hours in a day. So set a plan up, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but reflect back on what didn't work at the end of the week. You know what I mean? as long as you have something, it can be as little of a list as possible, or it can be this big list. I would recommend start on the smaller side.
Mhm.
Start with a small list, bite-sized pieces, get the win at the end of the week. Be like, hey, I set 5 priorities for the week. I hit 5 priorities. I'm good. I'm going to set 7 for the next week. If you set 50 and you only get 10, you're going to feel immediately, discouraged, and you're not really going to want to go any further. So,
Yeah.
but I would say, I'm sure you're familiar with the book One Thing, and the gap in the gain is a good thing to kind of focus your energy on what has already happened and got you to where you're at, and ride that wave, as opposed to, constantly looking forward and trying to find that path through the fog. So I recommend laying out some things, laying out some goals for all of those different things that you're doing, and then reflect back on what worked and what didn't, and then tweak, and then tap into your network and find out, hey, this is what I can commit this week. What do you think about this plan? Is what I want to do. Do you think I'm, better suited by leveraging something else, or is there a tool that you might recommend that I can try to lean on?
To your point, Stan, I think the prioritizing is definitely something that's extremely important. And I remember when we had the conversation when I was telling you about like the 5 different, projects that I had going on, and, to your point earlier of like trying to squeeze everything into one day, and like having to have your mind go like to the left, to the right, and like all over the place, and kind of how much of a disservice that was to myself, because, exactly, like not every single thing had to get done that day. Like it's not like there were like 5 fires all over the place and like all of them need to get put out like yesterday, and that's definitely a big eye opener. As well as like just taking on too much at the same time as well. That's actually something that I've been experiencing right now, is eventually it catches up to you. Like if you try and bite off way more than you can chew, like it might work for a little while, but eventually it catches up to you, and then it's not too good. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things, man. Like just kind of starting small, and like prioritize, and like just a couple. I like the number that you have, like the 3 to 5 things instead of like 10 things, because like if you hit like 5 or 7 or 8 of those, like it doesn't feel too good, because it's like, oh, like I didn't finish all 10 of those. Like that's something that definitely has come apparent with me, is like if you try and take on way too many things, and like even if you hit most of them, like if you don't hit all of them, like it's kind of discouraging, because it's like, oh, like you didn't hit every single thing, but like you might just kind of be taking on like way more than you can actually chew, and yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, and another thing to look at, I mean, for both what Janine, what you're saying with your big to-do list, and Kyle, what you're talking about, is when you actually start to list all that stuff out, your brain dump, your to-do list, what's going to become obvious is that you're spending your time on the wrong stuff anyway, or you're not leveraging your time. Like you're focused on, I don't know, let's say, refinishing kitchen cabinets for a month. Maybe not the best use of your time. There are ways to leverage that, right? So when you start to list this stuff out, it's going to take a while before something keeps like popping up, and it's like, am I doing the real easy tasks that are not progressing me forward? Like, am I focusing on the easy stuff that I know I can succeed at, but it's really not good dollar productive activities? And like, I mean, I found myself doing that. Like I kept putting on my list of, scrub the LLC list. And it was on my to-do list for probably 3 weeks. And it was a priority for at least one of those weeks. And I didn't get it done. And I'm like, well, why am I not getting it done? Like, and I look at it, I'm like, well, I mean, I made it through like 30 names. And when I did the math out, because I was like, let's see how long this is going to take me to do it. It was glaring. When I did the math, the amount of time I had invested in the small amount of LLCs that I personally scrubbed, it would take me 45 hours to scrub the entire list myself, the way I did it. And I'm like, damn, that doesn't sound like a good use of every single night for the next like 2 or 3 weeks. So I was like, I know that there are services that do this, and I know it's not going to be as good, but I jumped onto Upwork, put in those search terms, and sure enough, this guy will scrub up to 600 names for $90. And I'm like, is my 45 hours that I would put in worth more or less than $90?
Right.
It kind of solves itself when you look at it that way. And it's like, hell yeah, just do it. Like, I know it's not going to be as good, but you just took 600 names off my plate that I can now put into my lead source and start messaging and mailing to them. So when you start to track all that stuff, you're going to start to see room for improvement. You're going to see the patterns of maybe you're grabbing the low hanging fruit, which is not helping you grow the way you want it to grow. And it's stuff that you could easily leverage and delegate out and give to a VA or something like that. I am not a big expert when it comes to VAs. I don't have a full-time VA, but I'm open to the idea of VAs for tasks. And I know, Kyle, you use VAs for your podcasts and things like that. Janine, I don't know if you're leveraging VAs right now or where that they would be beneficial for you, because like you can't have a VA do your, like, take your design mind and put it together. Like, you just can't do that.
Right.
But if there's lead sourcing and things like that that you can have a VA do, and that's on your to-do list, like that's an easy place to leverage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a good idea.
So to tie in directly with this too, Dan, there's I forget if I mentioned it the other day, but I've been reading this book called Who Not How. And I'm not sure if you guys have read it or heard of it, but this ties in extremely well. It's by Dan Sullivan. I actually happen to have it right here. But it's, without kind of spoiling too much of the book, basically the concept of it is pretty much exactly what Dan just described of, you know, like the larger that your vision is, like it's almost like doing yourself a disservice to be asking the question of how can I get everything done, and like how can I get towards this myself, like you know, basically like how can I do this entire thing and get exactly where I need to be. But the question that this book is telling you that you should kind of start asking, like the bigger, you know, visions that you start to have, is instead of how can I do all this myself, it actually becomes, you know, who are the people that I actually need to meet to be able to make this happen. And Dan, I totally, you know, understand what you're saying about, you know, having like that VA scrub the list for you. Cause like, so I'm going to be honest here. So at my house, I've been meaning to cut the lawn and pick weeds for some time. I'm not going to go into how long, but basically like yesterday I actually, you know, took the time and was like, all right, like I literally like kind of have to do this because it's getting pretty bad. And I was outside for probably a good 3 to 4 hours, like literally just picking weeds and you know, cutting the lawn and everything. And literally like all I could do was think about like the reason that I was procrastinating this for so long was because I didn't have the time, or there was always something that came up, you know, and I couldn't spend time outside to go and do this. So now, especially, you know, kind of feeling that and the effect of like the, you know, dollar per hour task and like, you know, kind of reflecting and seeing like, oh, like, is my time actually best spent for half a day, like, you know, sweating my behind off, actually, you know, like doing this myself? Or is that something that, you know, I should just be delegating out and have, you know, a really good result, you know, and be able to reclaim that time, you know? And it really started to make me think, especially while reading Who Not How. And it's kind of the only thing to me that kind of makes sense. You know, in the position that I kind of want to have, you know, for the house and the business and stuff like that. Like there are just some things, like the more that you progress, like it starts to kind of make less and less sense that you're the one who's actually doing the work. And you know, to Dan's point as well, like you can't delegate out exactly, you know, everything, but if you can get most of the more tedious tasks that really anybody can do off your plate, I feel like that's kind of, you know, a really good way to springboard forward and, you know, kind of just worry about the stuff that really matters, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually the authors of Who Not How are the same authors of Gap in the Game. So I recommend that once you're done with Who Not How, hit gap in the game.
Mm.
So, but I want to be respectful of your time. It is past 3 o'clock, and I know I planned this for an hour. I mean, I'm willing to keep talking about whatever it is you guys want to talk about, but I also don't want to tie you guys up if you have planning to do for the day. So, anything, any other burning questions you want to hit?
I'm gonna run out and get my planner.
What are
Dedicate some
you
time
getting
to
for a
it.
planner?
I have no idea. I don't have anything in particular in mind. I was gonna kind of feel them out at Staples and see which one felt good.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have one you
Well,
recommend?
You're going to go through the exact same situation that I went through at Staples, and I posted about it, I think on my Instagram or something like that. I think it was the first post I ever did on Instagram about how there are no planners that do exactly what I wanted to do. Now, I've tried the Bigger Pockets Intention Journal. It's a good journal for the right people. For me, was not what I wanted. It was a lot of work. It's a lot of, write out your goal every single day, your top 3 goals, whatever you're trying to do. It's good to really get that stuff top of mind, but it didn't give me the control of the day that I wanted. And for me, it became a job of something I had to do first thing in the morning and something I do at the end of the day. Now, Dickens uses the intention journal, and he seems to think that it works out great for him, which is perfect. There are others, and actually, if you go on my Facebook, I think there's been a bunch of comments on that one with different recommendations of other planners. The one
Okay.
I'm using is an at a glance that I got from Staples, and so that's the one I got. And the reason I got this one is because it's dry. It is very dry. It's literally your time blocks all the way down from 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. That's the window. It doesn't give you much planning on Sunday, which is probably a good thing because you gotta have some rest in there. And then it does give you, hard to see that, but it does give you tabs for the month. So you can open up the month, and now you have a monthly calendar, so you can put some bigger items in there and track them. But if you're motivated by things like gratitude exercises and things like that, there are a lot of other journals out there. In fact, some of the ones that are on my Facebook that somebody had like tagged in there and thrown in there are really good with gratitude exercises, other guided planning things, if that's something that you want. And I may go down that road at some point, but for right now, I wanted nuts and bolts. I wanted, with how much stuff I had going on, I wanted to be able to block out my entire day. And it got me in trouble at first because, like I said, this thing is in half-hour increments. No, I'm sorry, 15-minute increments. And you better believe I tried to maximize my first couple weeks. And I was like, oh my God, look at how many blocks I have here. I can do this, I can do that. And then I didn't account for traveling between places, like especially for work, trying to go from point A to point B and all these other things. And I missed so many of my plans. And then when I look back at that week, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Maybe this is too much for me. And then I realized, no, I got to give myself a little grace here. It was my first time trying it, and now I know what didn't work. I booked myself solid, and that does not work for me because I do have things I have to be ready for. I have to adjust on the fly sometimes because I'm not a single guy, like living alone and just in full control of my every minute. So I realized that planning it too tight was not a good idea. So you're going to maybe have a stressful experience at Staples. I'm not going to lie. I find it therapeutic. I don't know what it is about stores like Staples. I love stores like Staples. I don't know, like it's that vision of someday I'm going to have a really cool office and I have all these cool planners and desks and all that stuff. But you'll
I can help
probably
you with the
clear
cool
your
office
head.
part.
What's that?
I can help you with the cool office part.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll definitely find some stuff. You may not find exactly what you're looking for.
I
But
think that's
start
exactly what I
somewhere.
need to start is the nuts and bolts, like just
Yeah.
start somewhere and
Right.
then improve from there.
Right.
Yeah.
My struggle was I couldn't find one that covered the window of time that I wanted it to.
Hmm.
Because I was typically, I typically ran my day until like midnight.
Hmm.
And
You're too.
I haven't found any planners that ran from like 7 in the morning to midnight. Because most normal people don't run that shift. But when you're trying to grow a business on top of a full-time job, on top of the family and everything like that, you need more hours in a day. But I did take the message. The planner is actually one of the big proponents of why I try to stop my day for the most part at 10 o'clock. My stuff spills over. It always does. It's just the nature of what I do. Like sometimes I just get into the zone and I end up cranking away. But I try to make sure that after 10 o'clock, which is why my phone at 10 o'clock at night, my phone starts beeping like there's a tornado coming. Because it's like, did you enter your calories? Did you do this? Did you do that? Like it's rapid fire of, did I get everything I was supposed to get done today? And did I enter them into my tracker? Did I check the boxes? Did I do what I had to do? And it's also a reminder of, dude, it's 10 o'clock. Like, let's try to unplug now. If you can try to unplug. I get away from it if I can, sometimes 10:30, 10:45. I'm finally able to back away from it. And then maybe I'll go and, get my head out of that process by like just watching a show or something like that. And then ideally, in the perfect scenario, I watch a show and then I go to bed. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes I watch 1 or 2 shows. Sometimes I get distracted looking at leads. Next thing you know, I'm running calculations on deals and it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go. And then in the worst case scenario, I fall asleep in my couch and then I wake up and I'm like, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I need to get upstairs. And then something distracts me. And next thing you know, I look at my phone again. I'm like, why? Why do you look at your phone at 2 in the morning when you're going upstairs to bed? It's a bad idea. So, yeah.
I like the way that you structure that, Dan, too, of like, trying to have that time at the end of the day to disconnect. That's definitely something that I have to implement. Like finally, like just having everything throughout your day, that you're trying to get done, and just like a tiny amount of time every single day to just kind of like take it easy and just lay off, and kind of clear your head and kind of get ready for the next upcoming day.
Yeah, if you don't allow yourself wind down, you know what I mean? If you're literally cranking analysis and calcs on a deal, and then it's like, oh, it's 10 o'clock. I'm gonna put my head down on the pillow and I'm gonna go to bed. Yeah, right. Good luck. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't happen. Like I couldn't get the stuff out of my head. So when I got to a point where I could step away and break it down, then I would just do something almost mindless, you know what I mean? Whether it's, I used to play video games all the time. I don't do that nearly as much as I used to. Or I try to like build one of these millions of, these are bad. These take my whole life. These like metal art things.
That's cool.
Build that? That is cool.
So this is the Neuschwanstein Castle in Germany.
Ooh.
But I mean, I have all these guys and like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end my day with building the Hogwarts castle or building a roller coaster or a freaking, I don't know, B-52 jet airplane or something like that. These are not easy, simple tasks. This guy right here, I think this was like 4 hours. And then
Wow.
I have the Walt Disney World castle, the Cinderella castle, that took me 6 hours. So
Wow.
it's tiny.
Yeah, you need to shut your brain off.
So, but yeah,
is
so
cool.
I realized I needed to change what my wind down was because
Yeah.
doing puzzles and sculpture stuff at night, not a wind down. That's actually more brain power.
Yeah.
Trying to focus on that. But yes, I definitely recommend find a time to end your day, wind down however you need to wind down. Some people it's a finger of whiskey or whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's just, you're good, you know what I mean? But that's not me. I drown my brain out and shut my systems down with a show, something like that. And just, and hopefully it's only one of them in bed.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 2. Sometimes my phone dings and then it's like, oh, okay. And then, a lot of my real estate conversations tend to happen late at night. So it's like, hey, are you up? Of course I'm up. What do you want to talk real estate? Let's talk about it. Yeah. Hey, I got this deal in Lowell. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on it. I'm not going to bed tonight, so.
Yep. Do you guys
But that
both
is it.
find that you are like morning people or night owls or little bit of both? Just curious.
I am not a morning person at
Yeah.
all.
No, I'm not either.
Nope.
I
nope,
do a
nope,
lot
nope.
of work at night also. That's why I was curious.
Yeah.
A night person as well. And it
Yeah.
kind of in the butt because I have to be up at 4 a.m. from my day job. And like I'm the most focused at like 8 p.m. and on. So like I can be up until like midnight, like painting or which that's gonna stop. But yeah, like just kind of just going and just zooming in and that kind of thing. But the only downside of that is having to get up in like 4 hours, which is also something I'm trying to work on.
Yikes. Yeah, my husband gets up at the
100%.
same time too. That's
Yeah,
hard.
It's tough. I mean, I've tried to implement morning things. I can't. It
Yeah.
is not something that I've been successful at overcoming. I mean, granted, my dog does not like us to sleep in. My children do not like us to sleep in. My wife is phenomenal at getting that started. And there are mornings where it's like, oh yeah, I've got up the past couple of days, like you get to take him out now. I'm like, it's 5 a.m. It's like, yeah, but he has to go to the bathroom. I'm like, then he can wait. Like, just stay right there. I'll be back with you in like an hour. Give me 2 maybe. But yeah, it doesn't work that way. Dogs do not speak that language. When they gotta go, they gotta go. So somebody's got to get up. So yeah, it'd be nicer if I was a morning person, but yeah, then it would definitely it would burn me out on the back end because I know that every time I've tried that, I don't make up for it. I just burn the candle at both ends now,
Yeah. I continuously try a morning routine, and that's one of my most frustrating things is that I do not find myself successful at it. And the one thing that I have found that does work for me is I will set myself up for my next day at night. And I do a lot of like the miracle morning type of things at night. And it just like, it helps my next day, like just be so much more clear and less stressful, which is nice. But I was just putting so much pressure on myself. Like everybody says you need a morning routine. I need to do that. And then it was like, just causing me more stress. It's like, why does this not work for me? And just find something that does.
Right. Yeah, I mean, unless you have the flexibility. I mean, that's where you don't have a full-time commitment where you have to punch in, punch out first thing in the morning kind of thing. You can make your morning whatever you want to make it. I mean, that's I have
I
a
do
little
have
bit
a
of flexibility in the
2-year-old.
morning. So, yeah. Well, all right, never mind. You don't get any control.
Yeah, it's not my morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So yes, you know the pains.
Yes, she dictates. That is for sure. And I bring her to daycare every day, and then my husband picks her up, which is wonderful arrangement for us. That works really well.
Nice.
Yep. So, awesome. Well, thank you so
Good.
much for doing this.
Thank you,
My
Dan.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Hope
this
you
was
got
super
something out of it.
helpful.
And I will, like I said, I'll probably have at least one more just because if Nick can jump on, then great. I'm not doing this for Nick, but I think Nick brings a lot of value, and especially if I can expose more people to what he has to say as far as the planning and things like that goes, I think it'd be good. And like I said, this network, I mean, granted, we're all in Ignition together, so it's a little biased, but I mean, my general network on Facebook is a lot of other groups, other networks. Last call, we had a little bit of everyone, where we had a couple people from Ignition, couple people from just my general real estate group. I mean, John was on it in the background, and then there were a couple GoBundance guys on there. And so it was good. It was good to kind of get everyone together and kind of share some of those thoughts across the board. So it's a lot. It's not for everyone, but can't say it's not for you unless you try it. And, otherwise keep doing what you're doing and you'll still be where you're at. So you want more, do more. Want more, do more. Want different, do different.
I love it, Dan.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I will stop the recording here.